I am super excited for today's video. I have finally made it through my master bedroom refresh. It's been a long time coming and I cannot wait to share the results with you. Today I am partnering with Cricut to share all of the last minute, quick and easy DIYs I put together to add some custom flair to our master bedroom, and then be sure to stay tuned till the end so you can see the full reveal. This is Whiskey and Wit. My name's Whitney, and on this channel I love to share all things DIY and budget home decor, as well as Cricut projects and wood builds. So if you like all things DIY, be sure to hit subscribe down below so you don't miss a future Whiskey and Wit video. So we've been in this house for about 4 years, and we painted our bedroom when we moved in, but we didn't really do much else, and it is a really large space. And so lately I've been getting the itch to want to redo it, and I finally took the plunge. It's been a few months coming, but now I have a space that I really feel like we can retreat to. So today I'm bringing you along as I put the final touches on our room with some quick and easy and beginner friendly Cricut projects that you could do to brighten up and refresh your space as well. So let's get into it.
Up first is this sign makeover, and I love the tongue-in-cheek little saying on it. And this sign actually was in a box to go to Goodwill. It has a fun saying on it, but it's just not my style. I ended up grabbing it out of the box before it went to the car because I knew I could make it over. I gave the front just a coat of black Waverly chalk paint and let that dry. Then I decided to create a decal for the front of it with some white matte vinyl. I like to use white matte vinyl versus the shiny on my signs. I just like the matte look, but it's totally up to you. I will link my supplies down below. So I measured out my piece of vinyl, and this is permanent vinyl that I'm using because I don't want to remove it from the sign. I cut it to the size of my sign. I got that all squared up in Design Space, and then I sent it to my Cricut. Now I'm using my Maker 3 today, but you can use any Cricut to make these projects. Once everything was cut out, I flipped my mat over and peeled my mat away from the vinyl. That will help so it doesn't curl on you. And then I trimmed off any excess and then started to weed. Do not mind my half on, half off, no chip. I like to weed from the top right hand corner to the left instead of the top left hand corner. I've gotten comments from you guys in the past suggesting I do that with different cut files to weed them better, and I would definitely agree that that is the way to go. I get everything off except for the decal that I want, and then I'm going to use paper transfer tape for this project just because I don't want to rip off the paint that I just put on that sign. So this is from Expressions Vinyl. It is $10 for a really long roll. I have had this for a long time. I apply it on the top, and what I like about this is that it's sticky enough to pick up your decal, but it's not too sticky that it's going to rip off that paint. So when I work with wood signs, I really like using this paper transfer tape, and I've mentioned it before. Then you're going to peel off the backing, get your decal where it needs to go so it is not crooked, get it all straight, and then start in the center and squeegee it out. Make sure you push it down completely, and then you can get up one of the edges to peel back your tape, and you're done. I love this sign because when Alex and I do something like embarrassing, like if I was to do something embarrassing, I would say, well, you're stuck with me. So I got a kick out of the sign, and I like that it feels personal. Now, I didn't do much to our bathroom, but I did want a new kind of first aid Corral-All container. And so I found this white container at Hobby Lobby and decided to make it over. So all I did was take some permanent black matte vinyl and cut out a plus sign to look like the cross on the front of a first aid kit. I just searched plus sign in the images. It was a free element on Design Space, and I cut it out. Then after I removed my clearance sticker from the front, I was able to just take some Cricut transfer tape, apply it to the top of my design, and stick it center on the front. This is such a quick and easy project, but I think it makes it look so high-end. This is something that you would probably find at a Kirkland's or like a farmhouse style boutique, and it was under $10. I bought it for $8, but you could probably get it cheaper now because everything seems like it's a ton of money off, 90% I think right now. So definitely be sure to check out Hobby Lobby for stuff that you can flip. But this one's awesome. I've got band-aids in here. I've got some different items that I use not every day, but on a regular basis enough that it needs to be out. It's a light box. I can grab it from the shelf and bring it down, and I love how it looks. If you follow me over on Instagram, you have seen this great find that I got a couple months ago. This rocker I found for $7, $6.99. I was so excited. I got it home and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it, but I knew that the wood underneath was awesome. These cushions were not my style, but I figured I could make them over, and I loved that underneath the cushion there were these really pretty spindles on the back. So when I typically make over furniture, I just paint over the top of wood, but because this chair was so pretty and there were so many different elements of wood within our room, I wanted to stain it to match our bed and our nightstands. So I thought if I use citrus strip and put it on like I'm doing here, it would help me rip off some of the varnish. So I went through, I did it, I put it on, I followed the instructions, I wrapped it in saran wrap, did all the things, and it was awful. I would not recommend this unless you like really need to get stuff off. This is better for paint than it is for stain. So then I just decided to say, forget it, and I went through with my orbital sander, and that was so much easier. I'm using between an 80 grit and 100 grit sandpaper here to get off all of the different elements. When you're using a power sander, just make sure you don't take your edges too harshly because you could easily sand down those really pretty curves. Then I went through and got all of the bottom pieces and realized that it would probably be more helpful to take off the pieces. So I took off the bottom, sanded as much as I could, and I realized I needed to actually take the bottom apart. So Alex helped me with that, and then I was able to get everything pretty close to all the way sanded. Then to get any of the edges, I just took this 60 grit sanding paper sheets and I went through around each of the little nooks and crannies that I couldn't get into with the orbital sander. It was a lot of elbow grease that was used on this. However, it was good to get everything out. The 60 grit is really going to rough it up, but I wasn't worried because nobody was going to be looking super close on it. It wasn't a family heirloom, so I wasn't worried about that element. And really overall, I just wanted to get that old varnish off. So after what felt like 27 years, I had everything sanded down. Then my last step was to go through with a little sanding block that was 220 grit sandpaper so that I could kind of even out any of the rough areas. My last step was to wipe the whole thing down with a dry lint-free cloth, and then I stained everything in a Briar Smoke by Varathane so it would match all of our other furniture. Then my last step when all of the stain was dry is I went through with a paint-on polyurethane to cover everything, and then I got a spray to get those spindles on the back. Then I decided to forego the armrest cushions as well as the back cushion, but I did want to recover the seat cushion because the bottom seat wasn't wood. So I got this fabric from Hobby Lobby. This is very much a Whitney thing to do, but if you're a sewer, you're probably going to want to pull your hair out, but that's totally fine. This is a hack that I did. I took a huge piece, folded it in half, and then I basically used hot glue and covered it to make it look essentially like a present. I tucked the different edges in and used hot glue. I glued it with fabric hot glue directly to the old cushion. Again, this is probably not best practice, but in the grand scheme of things, it worked out perfect for me. So I just tucked in each of the edges so that it looked nice and clean. And again, if you can sew, have at it, but I cannot, and this worked for me. Then my final step was to put the whole thing back together, and really in the grand scheme of it, the process was overall pretty simple if I didn't take the huge beeline in the wrong direction with that citrus strip. The sanding took a little bit of time, but I absolutely love, love, love this chair. For under $10 to get this was a steal, and then to make it over to match our bedroom set was huge. This Hobby Lobby fabric goes perfect with everything, and I was super, super happy. I had this vision of a reading nook with a glider and a table. This IKEA lack table is under 10 bucks. We've had it since college, really. And it had a home in our living room until we recently made some custom end tables to go in there. So I decided to take some wood and make it over. I ended up taking some scrap wood, using some pocket holes and screwing together a tabletop. Then I framed it out and sanded it. I stained it. And then I put that right over the top of the table and nailed it down. I also added some pretty hardware from Home Depot. It goes really well with my glider. One of the biggest tips I can give you for a room makeover on a budget is to use similar paints and stains so that everything looks like it came from the same set even when it didn't. Then you can get things for much, much cheaper. Now to finish off this little area, I want to create a pillow cover. I had an 18 by 18 pillow insert that I wanted to cover to put on this chair, especially because I removed the back cushion. I used one of these blank Cricut pillow covers for this project, and I used some Infusible ink to add some pizzazz to it. So the first thing I did was put my insert in the pillow to measure how wide my design needed to be. The width of this is about 17 inches, and I decided to go with about an 11-inch design so that you could see it when the pillow was fluffed. This Give It to God and Go to Sleep artwork I created, so I will link this over on my blog for you if you want to recreate this pillow. And then I took a sheet of Infusible ink, pushed it down onto my mat, and then I loaded it into my machine. The only thing different from the projects we did before to this Infusible ink is that you're going to want to select mirror when you go to cut. It's an option right on Design Space, and you'll see why it needs to be mirrored in a second. Other than that, it will cut everything for you, and you'll be able to weed it out similar to what we did before. I cut off the excess and then started by popping off the insides of the letters. This is a cross, to me at least, between a cardstock and a vinyl. Cardstock because that's what the texture of the Infusible ink feels like, but then also vinyl because it's on a sticky back. So I pull through carefully to get off all of the pieces, and then I'm able to transfer it. Now what I found with the Infusible ink is sometimes it leaves some of this little paper backing behind. Don't worry about that. As long as you get the ink piece off, the paper won't have any impact on your project. So then once that was weeded, it was time to press. So I took my Easy Press, preheated it to 390 degrees, and then I pressed out my pillow cover so there weren't any creases, and then I got ready to apply my decal. Here's a hack that I like to use for heat transfer vinyl or Infusible ink. Fold your item in half just enough so you can see where the two ends meet so that you know you've got the center. Then you can crease the plastic transfer carrier sheet, and that will give you a faux line down the center so you can line it up wherever it needs to go to be centered. Then once it's in the center, I measured to make sure it was actually in the center, equidistant from each side, and then I use this magical stuff that you have to have if you use Infusible ink. You don't have to have it, that was a little dramatic, but I will recommend it just because it keeps everything in place. It is heat resistant tape. You can get this from Cricut. It's not super expensive, but it will really help your Infusible ink project not to move, especially if you have a piece of Infusible ink that is wider than your press, like I do here. I covered my artwork with a Teflon sheet, and then I pressed both sides for 60 seconds at 390 degrees. Once that was done, I removed my Teflon sheet, and then I let it completely cool, and then peeled off my carrier sheet to reveal my pretty pillow cover. I popped my pillow insert back in and put it right on the chair, and it fits super well in my completed area. Between the pillow and the table, the glider, as well as the cute little sign that I made earlier, I love this corner of our room. Now with all of the different wood pieces within the room, I knew I needed some coasters, and so I wanted to create some black and white ones that resembled some tiles. So I took some infusible ink, and I'm using a brayer here from Cricut to push down the infusible ink. This is something that's not necessary, but it is very helpful. I downloaded a file from Etsy, which I will link down below, for these tiles, and I sized them to 3.85 inches as squares to cut them out. I should have done 3.75 inches, so learn from my mistake and make them a little bit smaller. Then I peeled my infusible ink sheet off once it was done cutting, and I cut off all of the excess around the outside, as well as cutting all 4 pieces apart. So once I had my individual squares, I kind of did the wave with my piece of infusible ink so that I could get some of the edges popped up so that I could peel them out. I took all of the little pieces that I did not want, so the ones that I wanted to remain white on my coaster, and peeled them off. Same thing here, you might have a little bit of those white pieces stay, but as long as you get the ink off, you are going to be good to go. So then I grabbed my Cricut blank coaster, some heat resistant tape, and I put my design with the infusible ink side down, so that black side down, onto the top of the coaster. And then I'm just using that heat resistant tape to make sure that it's not going to move when I press it. I'm trimming down my edges in case there's any overhang so that it doesn't wrap around the outside, and I'm making sure all 4 sides of my coaster are covered with that tape so it's not going to move on me. I did one last check to trim off any excess, and then it was ready to press. So on top of my press pad, I added a Teflon sheet, and if you don't have a Teflon sheet, you can use the butcher paper that comes with the infusible ink. I pressed it the same amount of time, so 60 seconds at 390 degrees. It's going to be really hot, so let it cool completely. And then you just peel off your carrier sheet, and you've got these beautiful permanent coasters that are also super lightweight, and they're cork backed. So that's great for me because the lightweight piece is nice. In case Finn happens to get one, it's not going to hurt him. He can grab it, and it's not like a regular heavy coaster. And also the cork back is super nice on all of the wood surfaces in our room that we work so hard to make. Then that way I don't have to worry about them getting scratched. And finally, we are almost to the bedroom reveal, but not before I share with you this super sentimental sign that I absolutely love. I created this wood sign for my nightstand, and it's also awesome because you can scan it with your Spotify app. So let me show you how to make this. The first thing I did was go into Canva and create a 7x7 square because that's the size of my piece of wood. Then I added this PNG file that I got for free from Kaluuya Designs, which I will link down below. It looks like a play screen from an iPhone or Spotify. Then I used the font Moonshine to type out Florida Georgia Line, and I also bolded it for the name of the artist of the song that we did our first dance to. And then I created another text box a little bit bigger that says Grow Old for the song. Once that was done, it was time to create my little scan code for Spotify. So you're going to need 2 sites here. You're going to need spotifycodes.com as well as the Spotify web player. You're going to start in the Spotify web player and go to the song that you want. So when you click on the track, it'll take you to the album, and you're going to go to the particular song and click the 3 dots on the right hand corner. When you select those 3 dots, you're going to click share and then copy song link. That will copy it to your clipboard, and then you're going to head back to spotifycodes.com. You're going to put your item that you just copied into that box and click get Spotify code. Then you can download it as a JPEG, PNG, or an SVG. I decided to do a PNG, and I put that file into Canva. Then I aligned it with my original file that I created before, and then it was ready to export. I exported it as a transparent PNG, but if you don't have Canva Premium, if you're just using the free version, you can cut out the background using a site like remove.bg, or you can cut it out in the Design Space app. You can also design this in the Design Space app. I just prefer to design in Canva. I went over to Design Space and uploaded my file, and I had to go through and remove the different chunks of the code. So I'm just going through and clicking the areas that I want to be cut out here with the magic eraser tool selected up in the left-hand corner. And then I was ready to cut it out. I sized it to 5 inches wide, and I cut it out on white matte permanent vinyl. I used my paper transfer tape and transferred it over to my painted piece of wood. This is just a scrap piece of 1x8 lumber cut to a square, so it's about 7 1/4 roughly. And then I also cut, while I was at it, some wood to frame out this sign. I've got a full video on how I purchase wood, cut wood, stain wood, all the things for my wood signs, so check that out if you are unfamiliar with framing signs. It'll explain the whole thing for you so you can recreate this look. Then my last step was to add a photo at the top. I've seen people add album covers, but I wanted a picture of us. I took 2 pictures from our wedding, one of Alex seeing me walk down the aisle and the other one of me looking at him, and I made a graphic that was 2 inches by 6 inches to fit at the top, and I just printed it out on cardstock, and then I took some of these self-laminating sheets I had left over from another video, and I covered the top of the image to protect it. Then I just added some double stick tape to have it stay put on the top of the sign. And then I framed it out with some wood stained in dark walnut. Now here's where the magic happens. You're going to open your Spotify app to use the code, click search at the bottom, and then click the little camera instead of going into the search box. You're going to point that at the file and voila! It opens up the song, and you can also do this for playlists, and it's a super cool way to create a memorable gift or piece of decor. I absolutely love these photos from our wedding, and I'm loving this fun way to showcase them in our new master bedroom. And now for the overall reveal. So here is a quick reminder of what the room looked like before. Nothing wrong with it, it was just not decorated. And honestly, it was where a lot of our hand-me-down or thrifted furniture lived, because this is our first home together, so we didn't have bedroom sets or anything. So right as you come in our door, I had a pretty busy gallery wall, but I really loved the lettering there. I decided to keep the Let's Stay Home, which I got from Hobby Lobby, but tone it way down and just have this little basket from IKEA with some Walmart eucalyptus. It really sets the tone for an oasis, a getaway, and I really like just the simple black accents on this gray wall. Then right around that corner, I added a ton of photos. I really am a sentimental person, and I love having these photos taken. So I did 2 large photos in these matted frames that I got for $5 from the Target dollar spot. It was such a great deal. And then I got these lights from Amazon. I added some puck lights on the inside that are controlled by a remote, which is awesome. I just hooked them to the wall, and then I was able to turn them on and off, as well as mess with the brightness. I can dim them. There are a ton of different things that I can do with this. They were super cheap on Amazon, so I will link those down below. I went with a favorite engagement photo on the right, and then a maternity picture on the left of the 2 of us. Both of these were taken by our favorite photographers here in Illinois, so if you are in Northern Illinois and are looking for a photographer, I highly recommend them. They're called Palette of Light. I will link them down below. Then coming around, you see the little reading nook with the glider and table that I shared before. This area is just so comfy cozy. I want to sit there and hang out. I absolutely love it. I added 3 photos with similar frames that I got in that same release at the Target dollar spot, so it was over the summer. I did 2 wedding photos as well as an additional maternity photo. The one on top is us dancing at our reception. Alex and I love to dance at weddings, so I thought this was a really nice touch. And these I just print at Walgreens, and I really like to go for cheap frames that do have mats, because if you mat a photo like you see here with the white matter on the outside. It just ups the overall appeal. I've also got the 2 pillows on the chair as well as the sign that I created. And to tie this whole area together, I got this rug from Walmart. It was in their outdoor section, but the black and white play right into the theme as well as the fabric on the glider. The pillow in the back I got recently on summer clearance at Joann's. The tassels and the black and gray were perfect for the room, so I knew I had to pick them up. I also added some additional texture with this rattan basket from IKEA and 2 pillows that I've tucked in there that are just extra pillows from IKEA as well. This cover I absolutely love. The chevron is a little bit out there with this room, but it's just enough that it can be a kind of accent statement piece. This area where our TV is didn't get a ton of updates to it, but I did do a couple small things to make it cohesive with the room. First, by adding these runners. So this runner is from Joann's. I added it underneath our TV to lighten up our fully white dresser. Both of these were painted and we added the hardware. So by adding these 2 different textiles, it tied it into kind of the modern farmhouse / boho look of the room. On top of our dresser by the mirror, I added a lantern that came from Five Below, as well as 2 signs that came from Sozo Interiors. They are a sign business here in Illinois. I'll link them down below. These signs on the wall are also Cricut DIYs. They are clearance Hobby Lobby signs that I painted black and then added a Cricut decal for I'll keep you safe and I'll keep you wild. More photos over here because you guys know I love them. An engagement photo as well as our first official family picture. All of these taken by Palette of Light. Rounding out this area, I've got a crock that I found at a market stuffed with some eucalyptus from Walmart. This little sign, one side says miss you already, the other one says hello there, was clearance Hearth and Hand at Target, and this cute little cup was also from a local market. Underneath our window, we have a wooden bench that has storage in it, and it's a darker wood that doesn't match our bedroom set. So I took a gray throw that I already had, tossed it over the top to cover it, and then I added this large lumbar pillow I made in a recent video for the Cricut Maker 3. I was able to cut that whole thing with the new machine in one swipe, but you could make it on a regular machine as well, so I'll link that for you. And then this is my favorite wall. This is our new farmhouse bed, which was shared in a recent video. I will link that for you if you are interested in making your own bed. We created plans ourselves. We kind of mashed up a few different ones and I absolutely love it. It's super sturdy. It went together really nice and we haven't ever built anything like this before. So overall, I think it was a really good beginner large build. For the textiles on the bed, I went with a comforter from IKEA, and then the pillows are a mixture of IKEA and the Walmart outdoor section, which was awesome. You might have seen this really cute blanket ladder that I made in a recent video that will be linked as well. I love the blankets on there next to the nightstands, and then on the wall is a picture that my sweet friend Virginia got for us. She found this illustration from an artist in Naperville, Illinois. Alex and I went to college there and we had our first date on the Riverwalk and that's where he proposed. So another sentimental piece that I was able to reframe to match the room. And then underneath the blanket ladder, I added a thrifted basket I recently painted with some black lines. That's where my slippers live. These signs next to the bed are lyrics from Grow Old, which matches the sign perfectly. I've got a full video on how I made that sign set as well. The lamps are thrifted, so another super affordable find. I was able to find 2 bases that matched, and then I purchased the shades from Target. And then one of my favorite touches in the room is this Let's Stay in Bed decal up above the bed that I created also with my Cricut Maker 3. It's removable vinyl that I applied and it adds some really nice character.
Thanks so much for watching and for coming along with me as we have updated this room. I've got a full playlist with all of the projects that aren't in this video but are in the room that I've shared in prior videos, so be sure to check out that playlist so you can get more information on any of those other things that I bought or made. And also, if this is your first time on my channel, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a future Whiskey and Whip video. Huge thank you to Cricut again for partnering with me to get this bedroom makeover over the finish line, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!